Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, where soothing stories guide you into a deep and peaceful sleep. I'm your name/your channel name, and as always, every evening on this channel is a storytelling journey to help you relax, unwind, and gently drift into your dreams. Sleep is a precious remedy, recharging our energy and easing away fatigue. Today, I'm bringing you a special story to accompany you in this tranquil moment. In this episode, we'll explore the fateful journey across Antarctica, a true story of resilience, courage, and the unyielding spirit of explorer Ernest Shackleton and his team amidst the harsh, icy expanse of the Antarctic. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let me guide you through this cold yet inspiring land. Wishing you all a wonderful storytelling session and a restful night's sleep. Let's dive in. In 1915, in one of the coldest places on Earth, Antarctica, 28 men embarked on the most harrowing nightmare of their lives. Trapped in a frozen ocean for 600 days, they faced the risk of being buried forever in an icy abyss. What began as an expedition across the polar region turned into a desperate race against death. Would they all survive and return home? From the late 19th century, humanity entered an unprecedented era of exploration, venturing to the most remote corners left on the world's map. Over 17 expeditions from 10 nations were sent to Antarctica, aiming to fill in the blanks on the map, collect specimens, study the climate, and unravel the mysteries of this enigmatic region. This period was called the Heroic Age, not for the victories it brought, but for the immense cost of discovery. Without modern satellites for navigation or rescue teams waiting the wings, there was only biting wind, thick ice, and absolute isolation. Thus, anyone brave enough to join these journeys was considered a hero. In 1901, Britain launched a large-scale expedition to Antarctica. Among the crew was a young officer on his first voyage, Ernest Shackleton. His task was to manage the transport of supplies using dog-drawn sleds. Though his role was minor, Shackleton poured his heart into conquering the planet's iciest frontier. Unfortunately, just over a year later, he was forced to leave the expedition due to severe health deterioration. This setback became a pivotal moment, forging a resilient leader for the future. By 1907, Shackleton resolved to lead his own independent expedition, with the sole aim of becoming the first to reach the South Pole. In early 1908, his ship docked at Cape Royds, a remote promontory in the northern reaches of the frozen continent. There, the team set up camp and prepared to venture deep into the interior. They battled towering icebergs, endured blizzards, and faced endless polar nights. On January 9th, 1909, Shackleton was just 180 kilometers from his goal, but circumstances spiraled out of control. Food supplies dwindled, the weather worsened, and the team's health deteriorated gravely. Faced with the choice between glory and the survival of his crew, Shackleton chose to turn back. Though the expedition failed, he was hailed as a great leader who prioritized human lives over fame. 2 years later, Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen etched his name into history as the first to reach the South Pole. The world celebrated this triumph, but for Shackleton, the Antarctic quest was far from over. In December 1913, he announced a bold plan to cross Antarctica on foot. It was a wildly ambitious idea, yet captivating in the context of the heroic age. To prepare for this audacious goal, Shackleton began recruiting worthy companions. It said he placed an ad in a newspaper that read, "Men wanted for hazardous journey. Low wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. While it's uncertain if this ad was real, it perfectly captured the spirit Shackleton sought. He cared little for credentials or education. His criteria were mental fortitude, optimism, and the ability to endure beyond ordinary limits. Over 5,000 applications poured in, but only 56 men from diverse backgrounds were selected. The expedition split into two groups. One, led by Shackleton himself, set out from the Weddell Sea in eastern Antarctica. Their vessel was the Endurance, a three-masted ship specially designed to withstand unprecedented harsh conditions. Built by Norway's finest craftsmen, its frame was made of oak, 76 centimeters thick, with a hull clad in greenheart, one of the world's hardest woods. The bow was reinforced with multiple layers, and the hull was over 1 meter thick in places. The Endurance was also equipped with a powerful steam engine and 3 lifeboats for worst-case scenarios. The second group started from the Ross Sea near New Zealand, tasked with establishing a logistical base and burying supply caches along Shackleton's planned route. On August 8, 1914, after 4 years of meticulous planning, the expedition departed from Plymouth, England. By then, World War I had broken out. Nonetheless, Shackleton secured government approval, as this was not just an expedition, but a symbol of humanity's drive to push boundaries in the harshest conditions. Thus, Shackleton and 27 men embarked on their fateful journey across Antarctica, accompanied by 69 sled dogs, each weighing around 45 kilograms, and a cat as a companion. By January 18, 1915, the Endurance was just 1 day's travel from the Antarctic coast. But, as in his previous expedition, the weather turned treacherous. Fierce winds drove massive ice floes from all directions, clamping the ship in a frozen grip. Initially, the crew believed a few days would free them, but hope quickly faded. The sea remained frozen, and the Endurance was immobile, unable to move a centimeter. The distance to land was too vast, and the ice between was not thick enough to walk on. For years of planning were dissolving like sea foam. With no other choice, they had to wait for spring, hoping warmer weather would melt the ice. But this was Antarctica. Winter was approaching and the sun would not appear. The expedition endured complete darkness for months. Time crawled by. After over a month of being trapped, Shackleton attempted to free the Endurance using manpower. The crew worked tirelessly for 2 days, pulling ropes and prying ice with crowbars. Despite their exhaustion, the effort was futile. Shackleton shifted tactics, ordering the ship to reverse slightly before surging forward at full power, hoping to break free. The Endurance plowed through nearly 6 meters of ice, advancing 400 meters before halting completely. On February 24, 1915, Shackleton officially abandoned efforts to free the Endurance. The ship became an impromptu winter station, drifting aimlessly with the icy currents. Most crew members remained calm, trusting that the journey would resume when the ice melted. To maintain morale, they played soccer, shared stories, and joked in temperatures plunging tens of degrees below 0 Celsius. The ship's living quarters were humorously dubbed the Ritz, a playful jab comparing the cold, cramped, damp space to London's grandest hotel. A singing contest was held, with a prize for the worst voice, met with cheers from the crew. The mood warmed further with the birth of a litter of puppies, a priceless morale boost amid the gloom of endless ice. But this calm was merely a pause before the storm. On the night of April 4th, 1915, as the crew rested, massive ice floes began closing in. The Endurance was squeezed, with the sound of splintering wood echoing everywhere. By morning, the ice around the ship had risen, some areas reaching 3 meters high. For the first time, the crew felt the looming threat that would persist for months. Shackleton ordered the snow and ice clear from around the ship to ease the pressure, but it was in vain. Despite its 1-meter-thick hull, the Endurance was powerless against nature's might. On July 14th, strange noises were heard beneath the ship's hull. One crew member suspected something had broken inside. For weeks, the Endurance endured relentless assaults, its rudder completely destroyed. Trapped in the ice for 7 months, 2,000 kilometers from the nearest human settlement, with no supplies or rescue signals, the crew relied solely on their leader. Shackleton maintained strict discipline, assigning daily tasks to keep the team focused. On October 18th, 9 months after the Endurance became trapped, the end arrived. Winds and currents shifted massive ice floes, crushing the ship's location. In seconds, the Endurance tilted nearly 30 degrees, its hull visibly deforming before splitting open under the immense pressure. Freezing seawater flooded the compartments. The crew fought desperately through the night, using every available material to patch the cracks. In the pitch-black darkness, despair was palpable in every heavy hammer strike, trembling rope pull, and bloodied hands securing wooden planks. By 5 p.m. on October 27th, Shackleton ordered the ship abandoned. The crew quickly regained their composure, gathering essentials, a few tents, limited food, handheld tools, weapons of protection, and 2 small lifeboats dragged onto the icy surface. A new journey began, this time without the ship's shelter. Shackleton announced a new plan: head for Powlett Island, where supply cache had been buried years earlier, 550 kilometers away. The next day, the trek began. They dragged 2 heavy lifeboats forward, but every few meters, they grappled with ice ridges rising like cliffs. Using axes, picks, and bare hands, they carved a path. In some areas, fresh snow caused the boats to slide uncontrollably, like sinking into a marsh. After a full day's effort, they had covered just over 1.6 kilometers. Shackleton decided camp on a drifting ice floe, waiting for a better chance at survival. He hoped ocean currents would carry them closer to land. He also sent men back to the wrecked ship to retrieve food and the 3rd lifeboat. In the following days, the group slept in flimsy canvas tents. Though physically drained, their spirits remained strong. Some joked they could now hunt seals right outside their tents, and they did. With ammunition running low, they used sticks and stones, ambushing seals from behind with lethal strikes. In their spare time, they maintained old habits like reading, playing cards, or telling jokes. By late November, the ice floe remained stationary, and hopes of reaching land grew distant. After months of hunger, cold, and monotony, optimism waned. The daily joy of meager rations and a hot cup of powdered milk dwindled as supplies ran out. By February 1916, their diet was reduced to roasted seal meat and stewed penguins. Cocoa was long gone, and tea was down to a few final cups. Even the most optimistic members began to despair. Some felt Shackleton had been too lax, failing to gather all possible food supplies. As time dragged on, provisions grew scarcer. On March 30th, Shackleton made the heart-wrenching decision to shoot the remaining sled dogs. The crew, who had raised and named them like family, had to pull the trigger themselves. No one spoke. A heavy silence blanketed the ice, a bitter farewell. By April, the ice floe they camped on shrank to less than 100 square meters. Large cracks appeared with increasing frequency. Shackleton ordered an immediate evacuation. The 3 lifeboats were launched, and for the first time in months, they left the frozen surface. Now adrift in the Bransfield Strait, one of Antarctica's most treacherous waters, they reached a large enough ice floe to pitch tents by 11 p.m. Exhausted, they at least had a few hours to rest. The next morning, they resumed rowing, uncertain of their destination. For 2 days, they faced towering waves, howling winds, and an endless ocean. Suddenly, someone shouted, spotting land, but moments later, fierce winds pushed the boats farther away. Drenched by waves and minus 40 degrees Celsius cold, their clothes froze and their feet went numb. Over 4 days, they slept only once. Some began vomiting. Others lacked the strength to hold oars. Hunger, cold, and aimlessness assaulted them relentlessly. Shackleton kept the team's rhythm, inspiring each member to find a reason to live. After failing to reach Powlett Island, he set a new course for Elephant Island, 160 kilometers away. Though uninhabited and without supplies, landing that would mark their first time on solid ground in over a year. Under Shackleton's command, they pressed on, losing in or while redirecting the boats and using shovels and bare hands to break the ice gripping them. 3 days later, Elephant Island appeared, but violent seas scattered the group. One boat, carrying nearly a third of the crew, was swept away, disappearing from Shackleton's sight. He could only watch helplessly against nature's power. 5 more days passed in the frigid ocean. Morale plummeted with the loss of their comrades, and their bodies were exhausted, feet blistered beyond feeling. When hope seemed lost, a miracle occurred. All 3 boats, somehow, reunited at a narrow cliff on Elephant Island. After 497 days isolated in the ice, they finally set foot on land. But Elephant Island was a barren wasteland. Without action, they would perish. Their only hope was the whaling station on South Georgia, 1,300 kilometers away. Shackleton staked everything on this. He chose the largest lifeboat and, with 5 others, set out to find rescue. He knew this could be their final battle. Before departing, he urged each man to stay strong, never give up, and promise they would all survive. After bidding farewell to their leader, the remaining men built a shelter, overturning a boat, propping it with oars, and covering it with canvas to block the wind. Their daily tasks included repairing the shelter, melting snow for water, and chopping seabirds for food. They occasionally joked to fend off despair, but the harsh reality soon surfaced. Health deteriorated daily. Some lost feeling in their feet from prolonged frostbite. Others were bedridden with abscesses spreading across their hips. One man pulled his own tooth without anesthetic. By June, one member's gangrenous foot became critical. In the dim shelter, 2 doctors performed an hours-long surgery with only an old knife, a bottle of chloroform for temporary anesthesia, and fragile hope. Miraculously, the operation succeeded. Meanwhile, Shackleton and his 5 companions faced dire conditions. On their 7-meter wooden boat, they battled waves as tall as buildings. The sky was perpetually gray, and fierce winds battered their frail bodies. All faith rested on Worsley, the boat's navigator. He clung to the compass, but throughout the journey, he saw the sun only once, relying entirely on instinct and experience. On May 6th, after 16 days at sea, they sighted land. But reaching it was no easy task. Just tens of meters from shore, strong winds and high waves pushed their small boat away. After 2 weeks battling the ocean, they finally landed on South Georgia. The problem was they arrived on the wrong side. The whaling station, the only inhabited place, was on the opposite coast. They decided to cross the mountains on foot. Shackleton knew the lives of all depended on this choice. He took 2 men, Crean and Worsley, leaving the other 3 with the boat to await a signal. They carried 3 days' worth of rations, half a box of matches, 2 compasses, a pair of binoculars, 15 meters of rope, and an axe. Day or night, they marched relentlessly. The rugged terrain forced them to backtrack, redirect, and restart repeatedly. At night, they huddled for warmth, sharing the last scraps of food. Crean and Worsley collapsed from exhaustion multiple times, but Shackleton forbade sleep, knowing it could be fatal. At the mountain's peak, they faced a gaping abyss below. Shackleton tied the rope around them, linking hands as one, and slid down the slope, leaving their fate to chance. They crashed into rocks, spun through ice, and slid uncontrollably for hundreds of meters. When they stopped, all were injured but alive. At 4 p.m. on May 20th, 1916, 3 gaunt, bearded men, staggering in the cold wind, entered the whaling station on South Georgia. Shackleton spotted an old acquaintance, who recognized him with astonishment. They couldn't believe the expedition had survived after nearly 2 years of silence. Rescue operations began immediately. Over the next 4 months, Shackleton led multiple attempts, all thwarted by thick ice and fierce storms. On the 4th try, on August 30th, 1916, he reached Elephant Island. As the rescue boat approached the icy shore, Shackleton's breath quickened, his eyes scanning frantically. One by one, familiar faces appeared. All 22 remaining men were alive. The promise of leaving no one behind, made by their trusted leader, had come true. Over a century later, in 2022, the wreck of the Endurance was found at the bottom of the Weddell Sea, hundreds of kilometers from where it was crushed, a silent witness to that miraculous journey. In the 1950s, 51 professional survey teams tried to cross South Georgia's mountains along Shackleton's route, but failed. To this day, no one can explain how Shackleton's expedition achieved the impossible. And so, we've journeyed through the fateful journey across Antarctica, a tale of unyielding resolve and unwavering faith amid the harshest trials. I hope this story has brought you inspiration, relaxation, and a peaceful night's sleep. Thank you for joining. Your name / or channel name for tonight's storytelling. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to catch the next story. Wishing you a restful sleep and sweet dreams. See you in the next episode. Good night.